Thank you.
Welcome. It was sent at 1:09 p.m.
Okay, I think we're live. Hello, everyone. My name is Karen Lee, and I'm the Administrative Consultant for the Community Preservation Committee. Welcome, everyone, to tonight's meeting. The committee meets the first Tuesday of every month, unless we have extra sessions during the application process. We will continue to meet remotely until further notice, and the time now is 6:01 and the date is May 4th, 2021. CPA funds can be used for community housing, historic resources, and recreation and open space. The funds come from a 1.5% surcharge on real estate taxes and the Community Preservation Act Trust Fund. Tonight's meeting will be the last 8 presentations for applications for CPA funding. And I'm going to turn the meeting over to Bob. Well, one second. So you'll have 5 minutes to give your presentation and then questions and answers after that time from the committee. Anyone that wants to send in a comment on any program that you see or any presentation that you see tonight, please send an email to cpc@springfieldcityhall.com, or you can send one directly by mail to City Hall, room 412, 36 Court Street, Springfield, Mass. 01103. Thank you for joining us tonight. And Bob McCarroll, the chair, will take over and introduce the rest of the committee. Thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you, Karen. So welcome tonight. Let me first introduce our committee members. Community preservation committees across the Commonwealth are required by the state law that governs us to have a minimum of 5 members, and they must come from specific bodies of city government. So we have Terry Rodriguez, who represents the Park Commission, Juanita Martinez, who represents the Conservation Commission, David Finn, the Historical Commission, Gloria DiFilippo, the Planning Board, Willie Thomas, the Housing Authority. The state law also gives each community the ability to have up to 4 additional members as they choose, and Springfield has chosen to do that. We have 3 neighborhood representatives that are appointed by the president of the city council, and with us tonight are Ralph Slate and Lamar Cook, and I don't think our other neighborhood representative, Terry Mitchell, is with us. And lastly, the Springfield Preservation Trust Incorporated has a representative, and that is I. As Karen said, everyone tonight will have a 5-minute presentation. Gloria DiFilippo will be timing you. She will give you a 2-minute warning. She will give you a 1-minute warning. She will give you a time signal. Please wrap up your comments and do not do it in a run-on compound sentence that your English teacher in high school would have graded you down on. We will then ask questions. There could be no questions. There could be 20 questions. Please confine your answers to the questions and not on things that you forgot to say during your presentation. So with that being said, the first presentation tonight is the Stone Soul Remembrance Garden in Blunt Park.
I'm going to take that one. How's everybody doing? I'm just going to start first. First off, let me thank the Bay Area Neighborhood Council and Stone Soul Committee just for the opportunity to talk about this project and in general, for me, this is a personal project because my stepfather, Doug Harris, was a part of the Stone Soul Committee for years and made an effort, to make sure that people had a great time and that they got the funding that was necessary. And they dedicated a lot of their lives to Black people, to our people, to make sure that we had a place annually, and in order to celebrate ourselves. And so I think, for me, the question is, how do you leave a legacy? Like how do we remember a lot of the efforts that Stone Soul was able to give us, and what preserves that? And so, what do you build? How do you build ownership of that? And ultimately, there is a language of symbols that has become more popular as time has gone on. They've been used in movies like Black Panther. They've been used in pottery for generations, for logos, also for fabrics, and the Adinkra symbols from the Ashanti people in Ghana. It is a symbol that is a language of symbols, which represents just a bunch of different empowering words, such as beauty, patience, hope, greatness, bravery, friendship. And we thought that, in which it really, we weren't able to depict all of that within the latest rendition that Anya Ryan from GZA put together, but ultimately we want to use a lot of these symbols in talking about the legacy and how we leave it and where we go from here. And so, to talk more about the actual the work that's being done, the existing walkway will remain, and we want to make sure that the pavilion is restored, that there is the playground equipment there is not all age and accessible. So we want to change that and make sure that's really one of the most important things that we can offer. And in the center of the focus of the entire build is to remember Stone Soul Garden with boulders or some type of build, again, possibly using sculptural Adinkra symbols, accessible ramps, reinstalling, and also providing new picnic tables, a long day, a new path, and new swing sets in that area as well. So again, it's a great project. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It really doesn't need too much introduction, but we're essentially trying to create a Wakanda in our own Blunt Park. So appreciate the time.
I'd just like to add a few words too as well. Chris, thank you. He did a great job in working with Stone Soul on the application. And we're just excited to be working with Stone Soul. I think it's a great way to celebrate our Black community in the city of Springfield. And I think it is a way that we, in the park department, we would like to put these, we call them remembrance gardens, across the city and have people learn about the different cultures that exist in our city. And I think this is a great way to bring that forward. And as Chris said, the citizens take ownership of the city and feel more part of the city when we can construct a garden like this. And so we're excited about the opportunities that present itself with this Stone Soul Gardens of Remembrance.
Okay, well, thank you, Pat and Chris. Before I open it for questions from the committee, I just want to point out we have a slight technical deficiency with your application in that even though you've referenced the Bay Council, there's nothing in the application. And we ask as a very minimum that you prove to us you've told the council, in other words, a letter that's gone to them. And even better, if you have a letter back from them, say they support it.
Yeah.
So if you can either get us the letter you sent to the Bay Council or a support letter that's from the Bay Council and get us that by May 21st, we will add it to the application.
I believe I did send, I know it wasn't a part of the original packet that everyone got, but I believe I did resend those letters.
That could very well be. So Karen, if you can just double check, I'm terrible about if it's not in the original packet. I don't necessarily see the extra email that includes the letter of support.
I'll make sure I resend just to clarify,
Okay.
just to make sure that everybody has it. But yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So any questions for committee members? Looking to see if I see any. David has his hand up.
I do. Chris or Patrick, I see that the total project budget is 398.7, and you're requesting 248,000 from CPA funds. Where's the balance of that coming from? Do you have that identified?
Yes,
Yeah.
from community development block grant funds.
Okay.
We also thought about PARC as well. So.
Okay, that was my only question.
Okay. Anyone? Ralph has a question.
Yeah, along those same lines, I did notice that several of the line items in the budget referenced CDBG funding. Does that mean that those line items are, essentially taken care of? So for example, the Access All Age Playground equipment is $150,000 and it says CDBG funding 2021. So does that mean that CDBG is putting in $150,000 for that playset?
Yes, I got the call late last week that our projects were tentatively approved and they're moving forward.
Okay. So I guess the question is, I guess the budget is all right here, but a lot of this is sort of non-showy work. It's a lot of like infrastructure work, it looks like, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess I have a question on the budget, and maybe I'm reading it incorrectly because I'm not a financial person, but next to the Remembrance Garden cut stone boulders, in the unit price column, it has $75,000. But then in the next column, called the extension column, it has $3,500. And I mean, the way I thought this worked is you took the unit price times the quantity, and that's what was the extension. So am I misreading that, or have you shorted yourself by $70,000?
We could review that
think so, yeah,
and
but we will-
make the correction for May 21st, Bob.
Okay. And the other thing, Pat, that I didn't understand was in the task total, I was under the impression that it was the total of those items that are listed in the lines below. And when you get to paving and resurfacing for a grand total of $82,000, it's got the bituminous on that page. Then it's got 3 items on the next page, and all of them, I think, add up to $82,000. But then on the top of the 3rd page is engineered wood fiber and chemical concrete curb, and those 2 items, which total, $23,000, don't seem to be accounted for anywhere. So if you can just double check the budget, and
Yeah,
maybe, like
absolutely.
I said, I'm not a
We'll do it
mathematician.
Yeah,
No.
we'll review before the 21st.
Yeah.
We were having some computer issues when we were actually working on this one, so we'll review that with our internal accountant.
Okay, yeah, because I have a fear that this price may have gone up by nearly $100,000 because of some omissions, but maybe not. Any other questions? So, Gloria?
Is it possible to get a picture of the accessible all ages playground equipment?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah. We're working with somebody at Landscape Structures who's done a great job at just designing. So we'll get that to you.
he just
Okay,
started
great.
about 6 weeks ago, Gloria, so we'll see if he can rush something for us for
Yeah.
May 21st.
Well, even if it's
Although,
exactly not what you're doing, but to give me a general idea what it looks, what
Oh,
it
that-
might look
that-
like.
That'll
Yeah.
be, yeah, definitely.
But we can do that.
Okay,
Yeah,
and then
but-
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, keeping in mind, though, that CDBG money's playing for the all-accessible playground.
Right.
Oh, that's right. Never mind.
We'll still
That's
give it
all-
to you. I
It
mean,
is all part of the project, so we want to give you
Yeah.
the full scope of the project.
Yep.
So it's all in
Okay.
the same area of the park, so you should know
All right.
what it's gonna look like.
And are you going to take down the existing pavilion or just reinforce it?
Now, we want to restore that hopefully with Putnam High School. And we've also started a program with, well, we've been working with West Springfield Collaborative. That's their trade school, and they might have another team available starting in the fall as well. So between the two, we have to make it a trades project.
Okay. I'm done.
Juanita, did you have a
I have
question?
one
Yeah.
quick question.
And since
Oh,
you're,
all right.
oh,
Well,
ahead,
let's go
Willie.
with Juanita, and then we'll do Willie.
Okay, and since
Okay.
you are going to be sending some photos of, or some drawings of what the other things are going to look like, I'd like to see what the actual memorial is going to look like. You say there's boulders and plaques, but do you have a design for it? Is there a design? It'd
yeah,
be nice to see it, since that's the actual memorial.
right.
It's in the
Not as
early
much the
schematic
playground,
stage.
but the memorial is the other piece.
Yeah, Anya did design something that is, again, a little bit more Adinkra-centric. So we wanted to just give it a more broad view and talk about all of the features. But I can also share with you that
Yeah,
2016.
that would be handy.
Okay.
Since that is the most important part of the Remembrance Garden.
Right. Okay.
And I guess the other
My-
question that, Willie. So yes, Willie, what was your question?
My question was similar to what Juanita asked about the plaque and the memorial, and I wanted to ask the question whether or not we're planning to memorialize those persons who founded the Stone Soul Picnic. And she asked the question, you answered it, so I have my answer. Thank you. You're planning on identifying and memorializing those individuals who founded the Stone Soul Picnic, am I correct?
Yeah, and
Can you
there.
hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, their names
Okay,
would be
thank you.
put on one of the plaques.
Yep.
So I guess my question is that, this is a project that has a series of components. And over past years, sometimes we fund part of it, but not the full thing. But it's impossible to guess what the costs of the proponents are, given the way your budget is, because it's broken down by construction type, as opposed to saying, to fix the pavilion is going to cost X, and to build the Stone Soul Garden is going to cost Y, and to do the picnic table and path is Z. Is it possible to get us, it doesn't have to be exact, but something that happens? Because as you know, like with Angelina Park, you had a whole bunch of items in it, and we ended up funding part of those items.
Yeah. So would it be best to just go down each individual piece of that and then give you a breakdown?
I think what would be best, at least from my standpoint, but I would invite other committee members to jump in, is to sort of say, pavilion cost, picnic table and path cost, main path cost, Stolzone Memorial Garden cost, swing cost. I don't think we need to see the CDBG playground cost, but just to get an idea of what's
We
the
can do
ballpark
that.
figure.
We could do that. Probably the the paths and the garden kind of go together, Bob, and then the pavilion would be the piece that you would break off, because that's probably the furthest location out, if that makes any sense.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay.
But no, we can do that.
Because one of the things that I neglected to say at my introduction, our requests this year are nearly $5 million, and we don't have anywhere near that amount to recommend. And so not every application will be recommended, and it's possible that there are components of applications that are not recommended. Okay, great. So unless there are other questions from committee members, we will move on to the next presentation, which is Florentine Gardens.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I'm Laura Walsh with the Park Department. I'll be presenting on this one tonight. So Florentine Gardens is an open space terrace located in the Forest Park Heights cozy corner section of the neighborhood. It is located in that historic district, so it is eligible for historic funding, which is what we've applied for. The Parks Department submitted this application on request of the Forest Park neighborhood. They contacted us asking if there is for our help to put this application together. So we were very happy to do that and to work with them on this project. The project includes design and construction costs to renovate the terrace, and what we would like to do there is to enhance the landscaping, provide a new fountain, and get this back into an aesthetic that fits the neighborhood. The Florentine Gardens terrace was established in the formation of the Forest Park Heights neighborhood. It's about 128 years old. And at that time, it was designed as a 3-tiered garden with fountain on top. And altogether, the height of that was about 25 feet in the air. We don't think that that's necessarily feasible in today's climate and what works best for maintenance and functionality. So the proposed plan is to keep the mounded effect of the center landscaping there, have a mounded landscape with a tiered fountain on top of that, just to honor the history of the area. We'd also like to highlight that history by showing on a sign how this neighborhood was formed and the central part that the Florentine Gardens intersection played in that. It is at the intersection of Spruce Lynn Avenue, Cherryvale Ave, Florentine Gardens, and Beechwood Avenue. So this is a route that people take from all sections of the Forest Park neighborhood to access Forest Park. So it is visible by pedestrians and bicyclists and people walking their dogs. We're looking to add some benches for the neighborhood to use. The Florentine Gardens is the site of a almost every other year neighborhood party from the Forest Park Civic Association, their illumination night, which is, I think, going into its 40th year of celebrating. And that's a neighborhood block party, and Florentine Gardens really is a central part of this neighborhood. So it would be well used and well visible. And we're looking to add irrigation, benches, restore the sign, and install the fountain with some new landscaping. So there is already electrical service at the terrace. So we would like to make sure that that's all up to code and provide some additional outlets so that there can be holiday lightings. Also, Halloween is a big draw to this neighborhood, so we can see it being used for seasonal events. And really just enhance the aesthetic of the neighborhood. So that's a quick overview on the project, and I'm hopeful that there's a few questions and we can give you any more information that you need.
Okay, Juanita, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the budget and I don't see a line for the benches.
Okay, they're listed under the site amenities. And it's benches on brick pavers.
Oh, I see it. Okay. Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a technical question. Normally in your applications, you give us the deed to the property. And that I did not see in this application. So is it something that you're certain that you own as opposed to the Department of Public Works because it's really part of the street system?
Yeah, and we can clarify for you. I believe that all terraces do fall under the park department there. But we would be happy to look into that some more for you, Bob.
Yeah, so the terraces, Bob, are usually city property, and we, under the ordinance, the park commission has the care and maintenance of all city terraces.
Okay. Well, obviously, the concerns, at least that I would have, would be making sure that it's under your control, and that DPW, in doing some traffic improvement, couldn't decide that, 10, 20 years down the line, that they want something else there, and since it's legally their property, they do it.
We can see if our law department can provide a document that states. I remember years ago there was, so we'll check into that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Ralph, did you have your hand up? Yep.
Yes. So the application is under historic preservation, but there is no sort of, the proposal is not to preserve the historic. There is no historic element there. There's like a bird bath there, almost like right now, right? So, what is the, and you're not proposing to sort of go back to the historic design either. So how is that a historic project?
Well, included in the application is the design fees as well. And part of that includes bringing on a historic preservation consultant to help us with this design to make sure that it reflects the history of the area, but is also putting in something that's maintainable with today's maintenance crews, with the making sure it's feasible. So we don't want to put in something that we're not able to maintain, but we also want to pay homage to the area. So hopefully in that design would come out all of those. Sorry, let me back up a minute. So we know that it's a historic area. The original fountain was removed because in the 1940s, and then at some point the neighbors put in that cement, what you refer to as a bird bath there, Ralph. That fountain no longer does not work. It's not really connected to anything. It was just put there kind of for like aesthetics. So really what we want to do is pay homage to the history of having a fountain in that area, but making sure that it's something that we can maintain. Putting in a 25-foot fountain, doesn't necessarily meet, I think, the needs today, but we want the design and what we put in to honor that history, and also to include a history graphic sign that explains what we're doing and why. So hoping to honor the history, but also reflect the current needs of today.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on some. Oh, go on, Ralph.
No, you can go ahead, Bob.
I just wanted to piggyback on what Ralph said, that in terms of, with historic resources, we can preserve them, which means, making sure that what currently exists isn't falling apart. Or we can restore them, but that usually means that does mean bringing it back to its appearance at some point in its history. And you do that based on old landscape plans or sketches or photos or written descriptions. So I guess my question is there indeed a photo of what was there with the fountain in 1940? Because if that's the case, we really should be looking at that kind of fountain. What is not restoration is when you gussy up a space to 21st century tastes.
No, understood. And in the course of putting the application together, we have yet to find a photo of the 1940s or previous time of that. We are continuing to look for that. I know that you're very familiar with the history of Springfield, Bob, so if you have any suggestions on where we can look to find that, we would like to honor the history of the neighborhood and the fountain. So if we're able to replicate it, I think that is definitely something that the neighborhood would support, and we could factor that into our design.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously, the archives at the Wood Museum has a great photo collection. I don't know whether they might have something that catches that. And then the 1939 photos at the building department, which are more photos of buildings, but who knows, they could have caught a corner of it. So those are the only two places that I could direct you to.
Great, thank you. And we'll
Ralph,
do
you
our
have
best
another
to have that updated for you by the 21st.
All right, Ralph, and then Juanita.
So just along those lines, is the application, could it also have the box checked for recreation, passive recreation area?
Yes, I mean, there are many people in the neighborhood, especially the youth in that neighborhood, that do use that as a small open space area to gather and recreate. So I think the case could be made for either category.
Okay, Juanita?
Just piggybacking on that, since you have 5 benches, it could be passive recreation. What about the Forest Park Civic Association? They might have photos if they have archives. I don't know. No, I see
Yeah.
Ralph shaking his head. No photos. Okay, just a thought.
We're doing our best. We have been looking. I also I grew up in this neighborhood, just right around the corner from Florentine Gardens, and growing up, it was always called the Circle, and that's where everyone would meet. So I would love to see what it looked like in its past history, and any way to honor that would be a great project.
Let me just raise another slight problem, and I'm not sure how to deal with it. But when I look at the GIS map, it clearly, it shows the parcel that is Florentine Gardens Circle, although it's not a circle. And then you can clearly see where Spruceland Avenue was truncated, which clearly wouldn't be part of the historic park. And then there's an area around it that's the equivalent of the tree belt in front of people's homes. So not all of everything that we see when we drive by there or walk by there is indeed the space. And I'm not sure whether CPA money can go into the public way any more than if someone came to us and said, oh, we want you to build new sidewalks on Florentine Gardens in front of all the houses. I don't think we would be doing that. So it would be helpful to know as whether any of the improvements that you're talking about are in what is indeed the public way, as opposed to the parcel that is Florentine Gardens.
Okay, so I think you're referring to the land bridge section there of the.
Well, the land bridge, and also the area that's surrounding the white area that's surrounding the red area. If you're looking at the Florentine Gardens property information map.
Okay, yep, I'm looking at the map there. So there's a brick walkway that goes around the entire terrace, and then on either side of that is a tree belt on the terrace, and then there's a land bridge that connects the terrace to Spruceland Avenue to the sidewalk there. So, but we can look into that and make sure. And in that section, there was proposed to put 2 of the benches. Those could either be taken out of the project or relocated in the terrace if that becomes a concern. So.
Okay. Well, if you could look at that, that would be helpful to know how much of that circumferential sidewalk is actually part of the, let's call it the park space, versus part of the street space.
Okay.
All right. Gloria, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to say Lamar had his hand up, and I don't see it now, so I don't know if his question was answered.
Oh, Lamar, yeah.
Thank you. My question was answered. Actually, I do have another question. What percentage of the budget is for design and construction is allocated for design and construction?
We're carrying the standard 10% of a project and a construction. That is a construction rule that your design fee does not exceed 10% of your construction costs. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from committee members? All right. So
Thank you.
seeing none, we will go on to the next presentation. Thank you to the park folks for being with us.
Well,
And
thank
we
you.
look forward to getting that information by the 21st.
Great.
We
Thank
just-
you
we
all
just-
very much.
Thank
We
you.
want to say thank you to the committee members. We know you're all volunteers. This whole process has brought a new passion forward for the park system in the city, and we enjoy working with all of you in this process. Thank you.
And getting to know
All
you in
right.
the process. I've met
Yeah.
you.
All right. Thanks so much. So the next project is the City of Springfield Down Payment Assistance Program. So Bobby, if you want to take it away.
Sure. Thanks, Bob. My name is Bob Demusis. I work for the City of Springfield's Office of Housing. We currently have a down payment assistance program that's funded by HUD's home program, HOME. That puts two limits on people buying a home in Springfield. They have to be income eligible, earning 80% or less of area median income. And what's come into play more recently is they put a HUD imposed cap of what HUD defines as a 95% of the area median value of homes sold in Hampden County for the previous year. The problem that we've found this year is, and if anyone who follows real estate, the prices. So this year, effective last April 1st through today, what HUD says is the 95% of the median value of a home in Hampden County is $198,000. Over the last 3 months, I can't tell you how many people we've had to turn away because you can't, go on Zillow, you can't find a home in Springfield for under $200,000, an existing single family home. You really can't. And that's a strict cap that HUD puts on us. So we're looking to the CPA committee, as we have in the past. 2 years ago, we received a grant similar to this, and that was more to help us for the people who were just earning a little more than 80% of the area median income, so they were priced out of the HUD grant. The sales price wasn't such a problem then, but now we're really running into where we're turning tons of people away. There's, look in your Sunday paper in the deeds, which is accessible to everybody. You won't see houses going for under $200,000 in Springfield. Somewhat of good news, and it's not as good as I was hoping for. Today, HUD announced new sales price limits for existing single-family homes that will become effective June 1st. That's 213. So added a little 15,000 on there, but you're not buying. There's not houses for 213. They're few and far between, which means we just can't spend that money. We can't contribute to help those people out who are buying the house. So what the CPA funds would do, CPA does not have a sales price cap. They do have the income eligible cap. The income eligible cap goes to 100% of the area median income. That's only a little bit more than the home program's 80% income, but it is more. So somebody who was just missing the HUD cap would be able to take advantage of CPA funds were we to have them available. So again, in the last 6 months, we've turned so many people away. Our percentage has gone down, and it's largely due to it's incredible. I don't know how realistic it is, but price spike, and some of it's due to lack of inventory, but still in this crisis, there's still people buying houses and they're paying, and some of it's due to the interest rates too, which are slowly creeping up again. But I'm astonished at what people are paying for homes. But having CPA funds would allow us to help many more people. And people, and I think we'd be leaning the CPA funds towards those people who are sales priced out of the HUD funds. We are planning, and I did it last year when we started running into this problem. We're when we had the 198,000 cap. HUD does offer that if you can do like the last 3 months of sales and average and get a 95% median of that and show HUD, the hard facts. And I did that. And I didn't, because there's a lot of sales in Springfield that are for dilapidated homes or foreclosed homes that are down. That brings our 95% area median average down. Time, 1 minute, Gloria?
No time.
All right, I'm out. Sorry. I tried to just ramble it all in one breath. Go ahead. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Questions from committee members?
Let me just say that I looked at the real estate and you're absolutely right. If anything that's in the 200,000s, perhaps you could buy it, but there's so much, well, I won't say so much, but there is additional work that needs to happen in the house. I don't know if it's worth purchasing if you're not going to have disposable money to be able to make those changes in there.
So where one other factor of the HUD program, the current program, so they cap it at 198 today. June 1st, it'll be 213. That house has to be up to code. We have to inspect it and make sure it's 100% up to code. CPA doesn't put that. So in the past, a house that maybe didn't pass, or maybe the homeowner was getting, they were getting a $200,000 mortgage to buy the house. And again, when I had the CPA money, nobody was spending 200 for a house, but say they were getting 160 to buy the house, and then they were getting a second mortgage of 20 to do those necessary repairs. CPA would allow them to help them. I couldn't help them back then with the HUD money. So that's another benefit that would help us to help more buyers, especially these houses that need more work. Let somebody get another $4,000 towards their closing and down payments assistance, which, again, the 4,000 barely would not cover the closing alone, the closing costs. But yes, you're right. The prices are crazy.
So I guess my question is that, when we gave you money 2 years ago, it was to reach that demographic that was between 80 and 100%, because CPA can go up to 100% of metropolitan median income. So if this time around, you're asking that it simply be CPA eligible and it could go to people earning even less than the 80%. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And Bob, and I can share this with the committee certainly before tomorrow. If you look at what HUD Home Program, which is the Home Investment Partnership Program, which they issue income limits every year for Section 8 housing, the home program, CDBG, the vast majority of the HUD funding, they come up with area median income for each MSA, metropolitan service area, which for Springfield is Hampden County. So they give me this year a single person earning a single family household can earn up to $47,750, I think. That's 80% of the area median income. If we go to the CPA site and look what a single person at 100% of the area median income can earn, it's probably like 49,000. It's barely more than HUD's 80. And I don't understand why. I kind of wanted to make that fight a couple of years ago and dig a little bit more, but it wasn't necessary. Here, the need is not for those people who are just priced out of the 80% area median income. It's the sales price. And also, much less frequently, maybe there's a few things.
Yeah. So let me ask you this though, if we were to fund this with simply having the max as the cap and no minimum, do you think that there are going to be a lot of people who would be in the 80 to 100% category that simply won't be able to avail themselves of the program because you're using all the money to help the folks that are under 80%.
I think the number of people, and again, I'm happy, I'll share this certainly, tomorrow with the committee. I think when you look at the number of families, if you say a family of 4 under today's area median income, and actually it will go down because I've seen the CDBG numbers and they always duplicate the home numbers. And what I heard again today when they came out with the new price cap limits is that June 1st will be adopting those numbers. So, but today, 65,450 for a family of 4, 65,450. If 100% of the CPA by the CPA definition is 68,900, that's a very, very small number. So allowing everybody to be behind that 68,900 gives everybody, I think, an equal shot at it. Excluding those people between HUD's 80 and CPA's 81 to 100 is a very, very small number.
Yeah.
Dave?
Hello? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. I guess my only thing is that CPA recently came out with its new numbers, and what
Hey,
sticks
Bob.
in my mind
Bob,
is
I'm
that
sorry to interrupt you, but there is someone with the last digits of 056. If you could please turn your phone off because you're putting in static. Thank you. I'm sorry, Bob, for the interruption.
That's okay.
I'm sorry, Bob. I didn't get the beginning of that because of the background.
Yeah. So a CPA on the state coalition website has the new CPA income limits, and I want to say that a single person household is somewhere around 57,000, and then it goes up for $7,000 for each additional household member, more or less. So I guess I would not want to see those people priced out. If indeed those CPA limits are what I've sort of given an estimate for, I wouldn't want to see those people not priced out, losing the opportunity to get CPA assistance to buy a house because lower income people are using up all the money.
So I guess I would, one, that's great news. New CPA numbers I haven't seen in some time, but I haven't looked at them because we haven't had the CPA money. That's great news. Maybe they're coming more in line with the global HUD programs, and that would be awesome. But I think I think the mindset of saying, okay, let's take the CPA just for people from 81% to pretend all the numbers are equal now, that would be great. And let's just use the CPA money for 81% to 100%. Well, those are only the moderate income people. And I think part of the CPA is to help low to moderate income people. And the low income people are being priced out by HUD because come June 1st, the most you can buy a house for is $213. So that means if they earn 80%, they can't get the CPA money because it's only for that. You know what I mean? I think that's a too narrow a view to take. And again, seeing the applications firsthand, I see where the need is, but that's great news. If the 100%, if more closely mirrors the HUD money, that'll be great. And that will let us help a vast majority of people, much more people rather.
Okay. Any other questions? Ralph has a question.
Yeah, I looked at the list of people that we helped out a couple of years ago, and I kind of was looking up to see where they're moving from, and I thought that the program worked out really well. There were people moving from all around sort of the area in buying houses in Springfield. Either they were living in apartment buildings or they were living in Chicopee or Holyoke or whatever. The one thing I didn't get a chance to do is to see if there were any two families being bought. So do you were sort of mentioning like single family prices and so on, but is this program available to two family house purchases?
Oh, yeah, one to up to four. And so HUD gives us a limit for an existing single family, an existing two family, three family, and four family. HUD's definition of a single family is 4 units or less. They also give us limits, and those limits have been pretty much fine for a new construction, single, two family, three family, and four family. And I see Amy on here from Habitat for Humanity. We just sold we just helped them build a house on James Street, and I think it appraised at 250, and maybe we sold it at we probably sold it under. But those are appraising and being okay, other than some of these new houses are going for 300,000. But decent, modern, modest housing, these ones with granite countertops and people are, pulling all the bells and whistles that are going for 300,000 and up, wouldn't be eligible. So there, I would imagine we help some two-family people. We don't usually see a first-time home buyer buying a three-family or a four-family, but certainly sometimes they need a two-family to help with the mortgage. So I can certainly update the list from a couple of years ago and let you know how many of those were two-family. But even the two families are okay. I think last year, the existing two-family was about 239. I think we might be going more to 250. That's more in line with the sale prices that are going. They're going for about 100,000 a unit. A three-family would go for 300,000. A little bit higher than that, but we've been able to help the two-family people. But the people who are buying an existing single family, it's sad when I have to tell them, no, you're clearly income eligible. You're struggling. You're leaving an apartment building or wherever you are. You got approved for a mortgage. You worked hard, but I can't help you because the house you're buying you're paying too much for the house, and it's not their fault. People list the house for 200, they end up selling it for 220 because there's bidding wars. It's crazy. And this hasn't happened in years. You can put your house on the market and say, give me your last best offer in 10 days. We're going to show it once, and you'll get more than what you thought you could get. And I've never seen that in this area.
Okay, thanks.
So I really think there's a huge need for your help here.
Okay, any other questions from committee members? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to the next one, which is historic renovations at 2612 Main Street.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us tonight. Jacob Panush here with Anthony Whitman. Hello. We're proposing redevelopment of the lovely building you see here behind us, 2612, 2016 Main Street. I'm sure many of you are very familiar with this property. It suffered some extensive fire damage years back, and it seems like right now we're kind of on the tail end of finally being able to restore this property before it goes to a point of disrepair and to be demolished. So we have a slideshow presentation here tonight that we'd like to go through with you, and we welcome any questions. And we're just going to share that here. Just give us a second.
Just be mindful of the time. It's just going to be a couple pictures so that folks can be familiar with the.
If I could ask someone, you guys to speak up, I'm having trouble hearing you.
I think everyone needs to mute their phone if you're just on your phone, because there's feedback coming through.
Yeah, maybe having a little trouble with the screen share feature here. Let's see here. Okay. Try this here. See if,
Karen, you may have to give them permission to share.
They should be able
to share
to.
screen.
Yep. There you go. Great.
There we go.
All right, great. Everyone see that okay?
Yeah, looks good.
okay, so, yep, in the background here, you can see a picture of what this building looked like. I think that photo is from around the 1950s. it's a very notable building. It's very notable today for its blight, and it was very notable then for its historic, impact. Um, Here's some photos of the existing conditions for anyone that isn't familiar. It's really in a state of significant disrepair from water and fire damage. And because of that, the cost of renovations are make the project almost impossible without a combination of subsidies. Our funding is a combination of the state and historic, state and federal historic credits, an HDIP tax credit, the CPA funding, and then developer equity things. We think it should qualify. The CPA funding would be used specifically for exterior improvements that the people, the public would see, including the windows, the roof for building preservation, and things like that. I think it's in line with the mission of the CPA being a historic renovation project. And it's also going to really help create some better community-based housing in the neighborhood. This slide kind of outlining the budget and the different sources and uses. So you can see that the total project costs are estimated close to $3.5 million. And we think the final value of the building is probably going to be closer to $1.25 million. So it's really upside down funding wise, and without the combination of all these credits, it wouldn't be possible to proceed with the project.
Yes, as you can see here, it's a beautiful property. You can imagine it back in its glory days. We'd love to be able to restore this building back to when it was originally built, or as close to as we can. It's a very prominent building in the neighborhood. It's one of 7 historic buildings in that district. And we just feel like it'd be a shame to see this property go to waste and end up being demolished. So we'd love to be able to have an opportunity to use some of the CPA funds to be able to restore this property to its former glory. If we have any questions, please.
Okay, well, thank you. So let me just start out with a couple of, let's call it, technical issues. So, and I know it could be confusing, there is a listing. CPA historic money has to go to properties which are on the state register of historic places, or which the local historical commission has determined to be of importance for history, archaeology, architecture, or culture. There is a small district on the state register called the Memorial Square District, but it does not include your building. It is very tightly centered around the Greek cathedral. And so what you need to have, and you can probably do it at the May 20th Historical Commission meeting, is to get the determination from them that your building is important because of culture, history, architecture, or archaeology.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'd be more than happy to go in front of them and ask for their permission to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, they meet on this Thursday, but I think it's too late to get on their agenda. But we need, if you're not actually on the state register, we need the local commission's determination that we put in our packet, so that we know that we're helping a building that that qualifies for CPA funding. The other, and it's a minor point, is what we ask is that you have a letter in your packet that shows you've notified the neighborhood council of your CPA application, and preferably a letter of support from them, but at least the letter that shows you've notified them. And although what you have in here is they supported you for your preferred developer status, that's not quite the same thing. So you just need to send them a letter to put them on notice that you've asked for CPA funds, and get us that also by May 21st. So with those two technical things, I think Ralph had a question.
Yes. So I wanted to just sort of go over, I want to sort of understand your experience doing work, and I don't really need you to give me a resume, but the question that I have is that Are you aware that the work needs to be done according to the Secretary of the Interior standards? And do you have sort of like a preservation consultant who is advising you? Or if not, I think that, you know, the CPC, and Bob, tell me if I'm wrong, has some provisions to sort of help along with that.
Well, let them answer the question first if they've got one, and then
Yeah,
I'll
okay, so do
speak
you have
to
a
it.
preservation consultant who's going to help you guide you through your tax credits and through you know, the fact and making the work conform to the Secretary of the Interior standards?
Right. So we are working to pick an architectural firm right now that has that capability to do that. We have on another project that I have right now, where we've received historic tax credits. We have a consultant working on that. Due to some personal health issues, we're not sure he's going to be able to engage fully on this project. So we're figuring out, you know, how to bridge that gap, or pick the right partner to bridge that. We, you know, have the copy of the Secretary of Interior standards for the historic renovations, and been studying that. The major components of the funding are based on it being, you know, historic renovation. So in order to get that, we'd have to, you know, follow the same guidelines.
Okay.
Yeah. So clearly, given that a huge part of your funding is based on the federal and state tax credit, you really need to be working with a preservation consultant who's working with your architect to get you through that whole process, and that in a sense helps us know, because all CPA money has to be spent in conformance with the Secretary of the Interior standards when it's spent on a historic resource. And it's a lot easier when we know that we're working with someone who's doing a tax credit project, because the feds, you know, are quite scrupulous as to how they examine tax credit projects. Okay. Any other questions? Ralph, another question, and then Gloria.
Yes, one more question. So as you know, the way that the CPA works in general is that, generally speaking, they ask for preservation restriction on the property. And the way that we've chosen to sort of go in Springfield, at least, because we find it to be a little bit easier, is to ask for the creation of a local historic district for the property. You know, once it's complete. Are you sort of aware and comfortable of that requirement?
Yeah, I think it would be our intention to maintain the historic elements. I don't see how that would be any different than our you know, intentions going forward. So we'd be okay with it.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure that you're aware of it. That's all.
Gloria, you had a question?
Yes, you're asking for $250,000 for exterior work only?
Yes, Gloria,
That's
that's correct.
Okay. Well, like Bob, I don't do budgets too well. So is it possible to get a budget that lists all of the costs for the exterior only, that totals $250,000?
If you have the long version of our report in the budget section, we've highlighted the exterior elements.
It should be highlighted in the green color there.
Oh, so that's why it was green.
You got it.
A little footnote next time. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The other thing is, and I'm sorry that I did not outline this at the beginning of our presentation. So, you know, this is the last of the applicants with whom we are meeting. We will be deliberating and voting on recommendations over the next couple of months, and we'll probably have our recommendations for funding to City Council in September. They take maybe a month, and it's their option to either approve as we've recommended, to not approve at all, or to approve with less funding than recommended. And then those that are indeed voted by the City Council, we have to draw up a contract between us and the applicants. And so money's usually not available until probably the new year. And when I'm looking at your timeline, you've got new roof happening in September, which is probably before the city council votes on the awards. And that could be a little problematic for us then to help with that, because the work was done even before the award was made. So is there some flexibility on when you do your exterior work?
Yeah, and there's a couple important pieces here. One is I don't think that we can do any work until all the pieces of the funding are really put together and we can be sure that the project can be done in its entirety. The roof is one of the very first things on there because it's badly leaking now and creating further damage to the building. If there is, one item that could be done to help preserve this building, it, probably would be the roof. But I don't think I don't think that we can move forward with the timeline without getting the approvals from the various sources.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Ralph, you had your question?
Well, this is a question for you, Bob. I mean, we don't necessarily stipulate that a historic preservation project needs to sort of strictly follow exterior preservation. I mean, I think preservation is the building general, and when you have, am I mistaken in that?
I don't understand your question, Ralph.
So let me ask it a different way. So if we're presuming that this project, if they have to put the roof on in September, let's just say, and they're not going to get awarded the money, or they're not going to get their contract until January, the money, if we do decide to award to them, doesn't necessarily have to go to the roof per se. It could go to other elements which are not necessarily exterior, but still work to preserve the property. Isn't that a fair assessment?
Well, yeah, I guess I would say that, in general, we like to keep the CPA assistance to the exterior, because that's where the public benefit comes in. But under the term preservation of a historic resource is things that go to maintaining its safety. So the fire suppression system is indeed an eligible item. Kitchen cabinets, and granite countertops are not eligible items under preservation. So, but you're right. There is some wiggle room that if the roof has to be done before a contract sign, we could perhaps put some of our money toward other items. But that's not for us to solve tonight.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions from committee members? Seeing no real hands or yellow hands up, we will then move on. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you for your time. Have a great evening.
Yep. Bye. So the next application is the Rainville Hotel and New Court Terrace Apartments. And I guess, James, are you presenting for that? You're muted, James.
Okay, I got to unmute now. Now I'm going to do the big one, which is to try to share my screen with you. So, was I able to do so or not?
Well, I'm not seeing anything on my screen yet.
Okay.
Well, it's your desktop.
I see it.
Yeah, someone running on a beach. Correct. That's what I'm seeing. All right. Now we have, well, it disappeared. Momentarily up was the Wayfinder's mission.
All right.
Now it's up.
I'm back. Okay. Good evening. I'm Jim Linfield. I'm a project manager with Wayfinders. Wayfinders, as you know, mission is to light pathways and open doors to homes and communities where people thrive. We do so through a variety of housing programs, including our housing support services, which provides emergency housing and renter support for those at risk of losing housing. We also provide home ownership programs, including home buyer education and foreclosure prevention, and we provide landlord training as well. We manage over 700 rental units throughout Western Mass, and we do so with a staff of over 35, or 33. I actually believe it has grown. We're also the largest nonprofit housing developer based in Western Mass, and we have completed 48 projects, including multiple historic preservations. The properties I'm here to speak to you about are the Newcourt Terrace and the Rainville, which are historically significant properties, all located on Byers Street. As you know, my notes. As you know, we are seeking up to 500,000 in support for these projects, and we understand that we have to come before you in successive funding rounds. We are also leveraging your funding support with both historic and low-income housing tax credits. In addition to the improvement and of the properties and preservation of the properties, we'll also be adding an elevator to the Rainville project property, which primarily houses the formerly homeless. And this elevator will allow this hard to house population to continue to age in place and the property to continue to serve the community. I've included some photos. I think most of this information, or all this information, is in our package. And each of the properties have a little bit different need. The Newcourt Terrace, primarily, I think what we have discussed before, or at least did with the historic. When it was last renovated, the options for windows were quite limited, and these properties have had problems with the windows, including inspectional problems. They're not very environmentally friendly, as in retaining heat. The Secretary of Interior has upgraded its standards and a product that we're allowed to use, which will be much more beneficial to the property. I would be glad to answer any of your questions.
Hey, thank you. So, Karen, if we can go back to the full screen so I can see everyone, that would be great. James, I guess one of my questions that, like Ralph raised in the last one, our policy is to make sure that historic resources that we assist now are protected for years to come. And that's normally done by the petitioner, once they get the commitment, requesting local historic district standards. And in your application, you submit that there's not a need for any exterior preservation for this project. So that's problematic.
I don't believe that we said that. I thought that I believe that there is historic preservation going on, including there's a large amount of work to the masonry and to the exterior of the property, including all the windows.
Yeah, so perhaps I did not explain it properly. So we certainly, when CPA is spent on a historic resource, the state law requires that we adhere to the Secretary of the Interior standards, and you're already applying for the federal and state tax credits, so you really have to adhere to them. So yes. I'm not talking about assuring that the work done now is historically appropriate. I'm talking about what could happen 10 years down the line or 20 years down the line, and either an exterior preservation restriction or a local historic district accomplishes that goal. We would not want to, do help on what will be a wonderful project, only to find out that 10 years down the line, you've sold it to some other nonprofit that's less of a caring steward than you are, and they now decide they're going to put in white vinyl replacement windows when the time comes. So that's a policy that we've adopted, and our money doesn't get given out without your agreeing to it. So given the fact that you've suggested on the first page of the application that you don't think there's a need for it, are you willing to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are only concerned about that any constraint getting in the way of the the state and federal constraints. I don't think that we're opposed to it beyond that if it somehow would affect our state and federal standards.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the committee? Ralph?
So you have 4 properties, is that correct, that you're rehabbing?
Yeah, it's two properties, 4 buildings.
How does that work? 2 properties, 4 buildings?
We're combining them into one project, given the soft costs in applying for this various funding. It made economical sense to combine these properties into one project.
So, in terms of buildings, the Rainville is a building,
Correct.
and then Newcourt Terrace is 3 buildings,
Correct.
plus a couple of parking lots.
Yes, correct.
So there are 4 historic buildings involved in this particular proposal.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, I just want to understand that. I mean, I understand that you're calling Newcourt Terrace one property, but is it deeded altogether?
Those are currently, the Newcourt Terrace is deeded to Newcourt Terrace. All of the buildings are owned by the entity Newcourt Terrace. And the Rainville is owned by actually called 32 Buyer Street LLC. That's a property we have an option to purchase. We currently manage, and that will be purchased through our funding round. We will purchase the properties and it will become one entity. The outward, they will still be kind of branded as they are individually, but it will be owned by one corporation.
Okay, yeah, I get that. I'm not sure how necessarily relevant it is that they're all in the same deed. Certainly, I've seen properties that are across the city that are all in the same deed, just because I don't even know why somebody would do that, but they did. They sold them all together, and it was one big deed, even though they're not even adjacent to each other. But I guess the question that I have is, given that there's 4 buildings here, is the plan to do like 2 buildings in the first year and then 2 in the next year, or how are you sort of splitting that up?
We'll be on a tight time constraint once we receive funding. So it will be all the buildings will be being worked on. Our projected completion is 14 months from start to finish.
Okay, so along those lines, it's a request for $5,000. Is that it also says multi-year funding. So are you asking for $500,000 this year with the potential to ask for more next year? Is that
no, that we would be seeking 500,000. It was our understanding we would have to come before you in successive rounds. Your limit would be 250,000.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you raise an interesting question here in that normally it's a project is usually a building. This project is 4 distinct buildings. So who knows? There may be some flexibility there. So James, let me ask you, are there affordability restrictions already on these units?
Yes, they are. They're all affordable housing up to 60% across the 4 buildings.
And when are those restrictions expiring?
I believe we still have restrictions for an additional 20 years. I mean, we tend to agree to perpetuity in our in any of our
Yeah.
projects. So when we go into this new funding round, they will be in perpetuity.
I mean, the reason why I ask that is that the community preservation law has what I think of as a quirky standard, which is you can't use CPA money to renovate community housing, which is that term for affordable housing, unless that affordable housing was acquired or created by CPA. So it may be that if we're looking at assistance to you, we are looking at it using the historic pot of money as opposed to the community housing pot of money. On the other hand, there may be some wiggle room that you can do preservation work to an existing affordable housing project. And preservation work is work to the walls to make sure that they're weather tight, work to the roof, fire suppression systems. So, this may be something delicate that we have to handle, but that's why I'm thinking the historic preservation is probably the route to go on this. That being said, it would be helpful to have sort of a breakdown on the exterior items so that we know what they add up to, and let's say the fire suppression system also on the inside, because that's clearly eligible to preserve a historic resource.
Okay.
So any other committee questions any committee members have questions? All right, I'm not seeing any hands up or any little orange hands up. Well, thank you very much, James.
Ms. McCarroll, should I be submitting that to you?
Yes, I guess it would be good to submit us a budget that gives us an idea of what are the eligible, what are your exterior things, not your parking lots though. What are the improvements to the historic buildings on the outside, including the roofs, include a fire suppression system, and we will be checking with the CPA coalition in Boston to make sure that they agree with my thought that, well, that preservation of community housing, you can do some very limited things that help keep the buildings, in a sense, watertight, in which case the roof,
Mm-hmm. All right, gladly.
And so the big date is May 21st.
Okay, thank you. Thank you
All
all
right,
for
thank
your
you.
attention.
Okay, so the next presentation is on 332 Bay Street, Springfield Affordable Home Ownership.
Thank you. Amy Drew from Greater Springfield Habitat. So we are looking for some funding to fill a gap void for a project that we have over on Bay Street. This will be the 55th house that we've built in Springfield and our 68th affordable home project overall. So we're really excited about it. We actually just broke ground and the footings have gone in. The family's been selected and they're really excited to see work begin on their project. This project is something that we've been doing in partnership with Putnam Vocational. It was actually supposed to start last September, but due to COVID, we put it off on hold because the students couldn't actually come out on site with us. So we're moving forward right now and hoping that come September that the kids will be back out there with us. They helped us with another project over on Orchard Street, which was really successful. And we actually have hired on a couple of the students after they graduated to work with us over the summer and stayed on. So it's been really great for their students for workforce development and things like that. The biggest problem that we're having right now, as many of you may or may not be aware of, is the huge increase in cost to construction supplies and lumber. So when we had originally priced this project out, it was prior to COVID. And now as we're looking at moving it forward or just having gaps in where we, what we were looking at, industry-wide construction costs have skyrocketed up over 100% for certain products. We also in the past had a lot of things that we could have donated to us, and we're finding that some of those products that we used to count on to be donated are not available at this time because a lot of our suppliers are short on their own inventory. So if they can't send it out to the store, they don't have anything left over to donate to us. So we're having to come up with purchasing things that in the past we haven't had to purchase. So we're basically just looking for some gap funding here to help us be able to keep this project moving forward.
Okay. Right. So first of all, just a little technical issue. Once again, you've probably heard me say, we ask that there's some evidence that you've informed the neighborhood organization that you're applying for CPA money. And I did not see evidence of that in your application, or what's even better, a letter of support from, in this case, it'd be the McKnight Neighborhood Council.
We did actually attend a McKnight Neighborhood Council meeting. I can get something for them about that. Typically when we're doing any of our projects, we do that and we talk to them about it. So I can get some reference to that and which meeting that was. We also do have a letter of support in there from the Springfield Housing Authority, because on the application it said that we needed a letter from them.
Correct. So you're good on the Housing Authority. We need something. And once again, we don't require a letter of support from the neighborhood because that would be giving them veto power over what we recommend. What we do ask is proof that you've at least informed them. So in the case where you've attended them, just get us that. Okay, Gloria, I saw your hand up.
Yes, you're requesting $50,000. What is the $50,000 going to go to specifically?
Specifically for lumber supplies. Lumber and
Okay,
supplies.
have you purchased those lumber supplies?
Not yet. So we've gotten our price quotes, and that's pretty much the difference of between what it usually cost us in the past and what it'll cost us right now as an increase.
Okay, so now this won't go to City Council until September. As Bob said, we don't know how soon they're going to approve it, if it's approved, and well, if it's passed forward. Are you going to be able to hold out buying that lumber until?
So with where we're at and with the supplies that we need, whether it be lumber or drywall or whatever, we're moving forward with that. We're to have the house ready for when the students come back in September. So there'll be whatever supplies we're buying when the students come back in September. So right now we're working on the framing and the lumber for that. At that time, we're hoping that it's actually going to be at the point of drywall and interior finishes and things like that, the front porches and all of those that go on secondary after the framing. So it's really going to depend on the timetable with things. But if we purchase now, and we'll have what we need, but we know that we're going to have these additional costs that are coming through for whatever the construction materials are.
Okay, but Bob, can they, are they able to, they can't purchase, sorry, that's my timer going off. They can't purchase the products now and then get reimbursed from us. Is that correct?
Well, we've certainly not done that in the past. I can check with the coalition as to
purchase
whether
everything up front. So whatever at the time after a contract, we would only be submitting for reimbursement for the products that are purchased after that time. Anything that we purchase now,
okay,
we're going to cover with the funding that we already have.
I just didn't want to
reimbursement of
see
things
any.
that we already spent money on. And
Yeah, I
also
didn't
right
want
now,
that little mistake to cause
and
a
with
problem for
the
you.
way timing is right now on construction supplies, I might order it today and not have it in until September. It's been really crazy. And just, the cost of stuff and the ability to get it is just taking a lot longer.
Okay, thank you.
So I have let's call it a generic question in terms of, this, when Habitat acquired this property, it had the period Victorian house, probably frumpy, that was then torn down. And now you want to put up a new house which will lack the scale and the architectural detail of the house that was there. Does Habitat no longer renovate houses? Is everything geared toward new construction now?
So we will renovate a house if we feel that the house fits our mission and our model and our family's affordability. A house that, like what was on that property, one was way beyond repair. And because we're dealing with families that only earn between 30 and 50% of the area median income, they would not have the ability to maintain a property or purchase that type of property from us after it's done. So, we're looking at, we have renovated some homes when we know that we can bring it in and that it's something that the family can maintain and afford.
Ralph, you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question. And this is, I guess, for both Amy and Bob. I mean, back when I was on the Historical Commission, and even before I was on it, I recalled Habitat for Humanity, when they would come in for a new construction in a National Register district, would need a Section 106 review. Don't you use federal funds for this work?
So as far as what we've been told by planning, this lot does not need any historical designation for it, that it's outside of the area. And so they've already approved.
No, it's in the national. So the way that it sort of works is there's a local historic district in McKnight, and not in that, but the National Register district in McKnight. And National Register district doesn't really give very much protection, particularly for privately funded projects. But once money is involved, and I'm not even necessarily sure about how CPA money would work in this case, there needs to be what's called a Section 106 review. And usually what happens is the property goes in front of the Historical Commission. The new construction goes through a design review where they say, oh, this property is not the right scale, or we need to add some fenestration or that type of a thing. And I'm just a little bit surprised that that this occurred in a National Register district. Now, I could be wrong on this, but that's why I'm kind of leaning on Bob a little bit.
Well, I guess, first of all, I'm not sure that Habitat uses federal money. So
no, we
on
don't.
this
We're not
particular
federally
project,
funded in any way.
no federal
Okay.
money, any CDBG money?
Not from Springfield. No, actually, I've never received CBG money from anybody. The only federal money that we've taken has been through home funds with the city of Springfield. That's the closest thing to federal money that we have. And that's usually always a pass through. It's nothing that we ever apply for directly from the federal government.
Yeah. But Ralph raises an interesting question. We've only had CPA. This is our fourth funding round. So there are always unanswered questions that we're learning too. This is a National Register district. The CPA state law requires that projects we fund comply with the Secretary of the Interior standards. So the interesting question is what does the Secretary of the Interior standard say about new construction in a National Register district? And that's something we're going to have to check on.
Well, it might not, Bob, because it is new construction. I guess I'm just sort of a little bit wary about, whether or not because CPA money, I guess, is not necessarily subject to I don't think there's any restrictions for a National Register district in CPA money per se. I guess the question though is whether or not, I know that the property is already demolished, right? So I get that you bring the building back and all that. What's that?
It's 6 years ago.
Yeah. But it was demolished by Habitat for Humanity though, right?
Yes, it was donated to us through Wells Fargo's bank after they had tried to put it up for auction and nobody bid on it. They donated the property to us. And then we demoed it about 2 years after the donation had come in. And nobody had bid on it at that time. And we did do a walkthrough to look to see if it was anything that we could restore. And it was just way beyond anything that we could do. And the footprint of that building just wouldn't work to make it an affordable property for one of our families.
No, I mean, I understand that. And I've heard that before, that Habitat is sort of moving towards a model where they are avoiding older buildings because they feel as that the older buildings have longer or have more maintenance costs for homeowners, and they're looking for more new construction because then at least somebody who moves into that property, nothing breaks for 10
Right.
years or whatever because it's
Well,
all
a
new.
lot
I
of
get
our-
that. I don't
Yeah.
agree with it, but I get it, you know. So, but what's worrying me here a little bit is that this is sort of strange. It's sort of a long, drawn out process, and we're sort of coming in at the tail end, right? So, in other words, 6 years ago, a property was purchased, it was demolished for a Habitat house, and there was no request for CPA funding, and now later there's for CPA funding that goes towards this. And I guess the question that I have is that counter to the sort of the community preservation concept, which is like, in other words, if this project came in and said, we have this house, we're going to buy it and we're going to demolish it to build affordable housing, is that in the line of preserving the community, so to speak? That's all. I'm just sort of thinking out loud in public, just so that people know where I'm going with this. So I guess I don't exactly have a question, but thank you for answering the question as to whether or not federal funding or CDBG funding was used. Because if it's not, then there was no Section 106 review required for this.
There's been no outside funding used on this property at all. It's all been things that we've self-funded.
I gotcha.
Okay. Any other questions from committee members? All right, seeing no hands up, thank you very much for your presentation, and we will move on to the next presentation, which is Historic Facade Restoration and Preservation at Classical High School.
Am I on the screen and can I be heard?
You can be heard. You were not yet on the screen.
Let me remedy that. Am I now on the screen?
We can see you, yes.
All right, terrific. My name is Jeff Kearney. I'm the property manager, and I'm joined here this evening by Ron LeBaron, who's also available for any comments that are needed and to answer any questions that you have. The first thing I'd like to obviously thank the committee for their time and for looking at our application. And that's for, as mentioned, facade restoration at the site. We did have an application in last year, which was declined. And I will touch on that later, but we've here to present a model this year that we think fits for the CPA, and we're hopeful for the needed funding for the facade restoration. Ostensibly, that is two elements, so it's a pretty simple project, which is the masonry surfaces of the exterior of the building are in somewhat desperate need, if you will, of restoration. There is declining brick, declining mortar, as well as some of the limestone facade, and even a bit of the granite work on the site has not seen restoration for what is about I would believe, a 40-year cycle. Generally speaking, in that industry, 40, 50 years pass on a structure as fine as that building is, and it does need work. That would be followed by a cleaning of the building, which in part is a chemical cleaning, not a sandblasting or other type of method, but a chemical cleaning, and in some cases just a wash of molds and mildews and such. The proposal is for the building, if you don't know it, Classical High School is at 235, is that correct? Yeah, 235 State Street. And that's in the lower Maple Historic District across from the Springfield Library and the Springfield Museums. That area, it has seen some impact by historic renovation, particularly of the library not too many years ago, for repointing of that building, masonry work, and cleaning, which has a tremendous impact on that area, and we're hoping for the same at Classical High. The project application for funding is a request for a 3-year program. Both the scope of work can meet a 3-year schedule, and the funding that is available and that we're leveraging from the trust itself will meet that type of a schedule very nicely and allow them to take care of other components of their infrastructure with house money that they have right now, as well as a loan outstanding that they have right now. Thank you, Gloria. The other items of mention is that the application meets almost all of the historic preservation priorities and seemingly all of the general criteria of the CPA. I do want to mention a couple things. Last year, it was noted that the particular application in front of the CPA was determined in part, not in whole, but in part to be somewhat more maintenance friendly than historic renovation. We perhaps would not disagree with that in whole. So we've modified that to, again, be very particular to just the masonry surfaces and the exterior of the building this year, rather than looking at the window work and other things that we were last year. One of the other items of particular concern is that the impact issues within the community. And that's really something that the trust board feels very strongly about. The benefit to the thousands of people that have passed through the hallways there and the 111 Springfield residents that live there now is one thing. But people who visit the museum, if you don't know it, that is inside of Classical High, people that visit the art gallery, and there are many public occasions that happen inside of the building that was built in, I believe, I had it incorrect on my application. 1897 is the structure. I had 1851 there, so I was not cheating. It was a clerical error. So in closing, and I'm trying to meet Gloria doesn't want to put a 0 up there for me. In closing, I just wanted to say that the expected outcome is to once again have this long-term capital repair that is unaffordable by Classical on their own happen for another 40 to 50 year cycle and a tremendous boon to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. So first, a little minor technical issue. I did not see in the application any evidence that you've notified your neighborhood organization, or even better, a letter of support. So have you reached out to your neighborhood group already?
Ron might be better to answer that, but we did. And we did have letters, actually, plural, of support last year. Duplication of those or going to those people should not be a problem this year to be able to turn those into you folks.
Yeah, so unless somehow it came as a separate email that Karen sent out, having received it separate from the application, it would be good to have, if nothing else, a letter that you send to the Armory Quadrangle Civic Association notifying them that you've applied for CPA for masonry work, because it is a different project from last year. And better yet, if they want to send in a letter of support for this. I don't think we can recycle last year's letter this year because these are, in a sense, two different projects.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
We can get that letter, Bob, not a problem.
Oh, okay. And I guess the other question that I have is, we can't guarantee that if we recommend something this year, we're going to recommend it next year. So I guess what's going to, if we were to fund you this year, what exactly is it the State Street facade you'll do? Is it the Temple Street facade? What would we see done if we were to recommend this year?
Hearing this briefly in some previous applications, I actually entered the hallway and spoke with the contractor minutes ago. And he feels strongly that that the contract can be parsed out in the very manner that you just mentioned, which would be to do work to sections of the building. There are 2 internal courtyards that are separate and distinct from the rest of the property, but still on an exterior component, and or that different, obviously, planes of the building can be approached. There's also a manner of approach where the masonry that can be done separately and distinct from the cleaning. What occurs in brief is that when you're doing an area of repointing or reconstruction of some of the limestone areas, you do need to clean that specific area. And then at the very end of the project, which is almost $90,000 of the $200,000 plus project, that's a separate cleaning. So the job can be parsed out in a number of different ways that I think would make sense, that if funding wasn't available in whole and funding was only available in part between the trust and the CPA, I think that could work.
Okay, and just to make sure that everyone's clear, that if we were recommending funding this year, it does not automatically mean that we are recommending funding next year. So this year's committee can't decide what next year's committee is going to do. Okay, any other questions? Ralph, you have your hand up?
I do, yes. I have a couple of questions. So the first question I have is, do you have sort of somebody who's familiar with the Secretary of the Interior standards on staff to guide you through the process here? You know, just as an example, like I understand that you're going to repoint. It doesn't mention anything about, you know, like what kind of mortar you're going to be using since this is a historic property. And, you know, there seems to be some bricks that are missing. Like, how are you going to source matching bricks in that case? And then there are also some instances where there's some, it looks like there's some sandstone that's missing. So how would you be sourcing the sandstone to, you know, sort of repair those problems?
So we do, I have some chops in that arena from years ago, and I am just happen to be licensed in both Massachusetts and Connecticut as a construction supervisor, and I've done a lot of work, but also I'm a certified rehabilitation specialist from years ago and have done projects very similar to this and supervised them as well, hands-on and others. So I'm familiar with all the process and the standards. I do think that a portion of funds, probably from in-house money, I would think would be available for an architect or an engineer to have a hand in the job. I don't think it's extensive. Hiring the right contractor is elementally important. The contractor that we have right now, although we are still looking for others, particularly, you know, Springfield-based contractors, the one that's presented to you has 30 to 30, I guess 35 years of experience in the field. So I did quiz them on their ability to resource the bricks, the blocks, the limestone, and they were very, very confident. But I'm quite certain that Ron and the trust will back the play of hiring a specialist to supervise.
So along those lines, would you be able to provide? I know that one of the problems that we had in the past is when we've approved historic monies, and then we've had one of our consultants review the properties, and that consultant has said to me, you know, there's no specifications whatsoever here. And so I guess I'm going to echo what she said to me, you know, not about, she didn't read this, but in the past, you know, she would say in this case, well, there's nothing in here that explains, you know, what kind of brick you're going to use, what kind of mortar you're going to use, what kind of sandstone you're going to use. And in order to sort of make the contract work, that stuff sort of needs to be done ahead of time. Now, I'm not saying that it needs to be done before approval, but would you be willing, you know, if you were granted the funds to present us with a list of all of the basically the detail behind what's actually going to be done. You know, ranging from this is the color of the mortar, this is the type of the mortar, to, you know, here's where we're going to be sourcing all these materials.
I think that's really fair. I actually think that the preponderance of that could be easily produced before the May 20th date that's been tossed around. Discussion between myself and several of the contractors, which are also Pioneer and Nagy and K&F Brick Company. A lot of that has already been mentioned. We did not put it on paper, but I think it's very fair to get it on paper. And I think we could and should produce that before May 20th, because we want to know also that we have the product that's going to match up and be copacetic with the job. So I think absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions from committee members? All right. I see no other. Oh, Ralph.
I have one more, Bob. I was just trying to give somebody else a chance if they wanted to jump in, but I have one more question. Regarding the line that says repoint, repair, and rebuild as needed in small courtyard, comma, red brick. What exactly does that reference?
Well, there are two what are being described as courtyards. One actually is the former gym that now houses indoor parking. And there's a smaller internal courtyard that is all red brick. It does not have the yellow brick that you see on the exterior. So that's his reference. And the proposal is curt and brief and to the point, but certainly we can expound upon all that and give greater detail. The contractor is well renowned in the industry, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess what I would suggest is, you know, by May 21st, you get us an idea of the differing options that can be worked on with 1 year's worth of funding, if we can't commit to you 3 years worth of funding. And I guess my other comment is certainly the more public viewable, the higher, in my mind at least, the public benefit. So, I mean, work to the facade is more important than work to the courtyards, unless the courtyards are in a state of collapse, in which case that's the preservation of the building. But get us something so we have an idea of, if we were to recommend this, what's the public going to see out of $50,000 of CPA funding in 2021? Okay?
Terrific. Thank you.
Very good. So once again, any last hands up? I see nobody. All right. So moving on. The next one is the Highland Rail Trail and Wasson Trolley Development Project. And David, are you presenting on behalf of Charlie Knight? You're muted. David, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you.
Okay. Khalil Maddox is supposed to be reading a statement, but I'm not sure if he can hear me either. I can read it if you want. Charlie's not well this week. Khalil, are you here? Can you unmute? I will, in that case, read. We have a fairly simple presentation this year. It's related to the McKnight CDC proposal in that it envisions a heritage rail trail as part of a comprehensive heritage-based revitalization strategy for the central and western parts of the city, including but not only the downtown area. We will refer to that. We feel our proposal stands on its own as well. We note that considerable funds have been expended on rail trails without tangible results so far. perhaps one of the most experienced bicycle riders active locally, I am trying to bring forward this proposal to focus on the need to create a facility that is actually useful to the community, as well as integrated into a broader strategy. This is seen as working on two levels. First, wait, let me get out of the zone. First, it would be a rationalization of the rail trail program as it applies to the Highland Division. The two separate facilities which the committee has invested in do not connect to each other or to downtown. We do not know why the central portion is being omitted. Accusations of discrimination have been made, but we see no proof, so we do not want to repeat them. The intimation has been made also by proponents that the facility now planned would be extended in the future, but decisions are being made that might make this difficult or impossible. And I'm going to try to share the screen. If I can.
David, do you want me to help you?
Yes, can you share that? Can you post those two pictures, the parking lot pictures, Karen?
Okay, so I have all of the PDFs that you sent me, but they're not in a slideshow. So I'm not sure what we're going to see.
I'll narrate.
So maybe you just pick it up from
This is not relevant to the rail trail. That's not relevant to the rail trail.
parking lot.
Parking lot. What you have showing in this parking lot is the parking lot that has recently been constructed at the Mason Square Apartments. This was a project that was partly funded by CPA funds. They have, on both sides of State Street, constructed parking facilities that are immediately on the Highland Division right-of-way. And we are concerned that similar continued development will continue to capture these use of these properties for these, pardon me, parts of the right of way for other purposes and make a continuous facility impossible. This second parking lot you see is the one on the south side, pardon me, it's on the north side of State Street. You can see Bergen Circle in the background. This abuts the Rebecca John Playground. We see that action should be taken now to ensure that all sections of the right-of-way will be developed in a coherent way to create a facility that goes somewhere and is actually usable for riders who are trying to get somewhere typically, and does not end up being a dangerous semi-abandoned folly like the one that has never been completed along the Connecticut River. This grant, which we're asking for, which we actually would like to go to the Park Department, is a first step in the process and would protect the investments of time and money that have already been made. Secondly, we're interested in developing, or rather investigating the potential of developing a facility that would highlight the city's rich history as a manufacturing center for rail cars and trolleys due to the work carried out at the Wasson facility in our north end. Among the photographs that Karen has been sharing are a couple showing trolleys operating just after the turn of the century in the areas immediately adjacent to the rail trail at Winchester Square.
David,
we
you have
feel it
1
would be a
minute.
developable facility to use the right of way. Hello?
You have 1 minute.
1 minute, okay. To display the either restored Wasson cars or reproductions such as they've done in Lowell. We're unsure of the requirements of CPA, but we feel this would be recreational as well as historical. Many sites around the country have used trolley cars as a basis for recreational facilities, and we have at least 3 of them in Connecticut, as well as 1 in Massachusetts and Lowell. I'm summarizing this, and this is for the presentation. This was Charlie Knight who narrated most of this. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, David. So, you know, first of all, the issue of little administrative stuff. The application contains nothing that implies that this proposal has been given to either Old Hill Council, Upper Hill Council. You know, they're not aware that you're applying for it. So we clearly need some sort of proof, better a letter of support, but at least proof that the appropriate neighborhood councils have been at least informed that you're applying for CPA money. Secondly, clearly,
We can handle that.
we can't fund historic items without a determination from the historical commission that whatever it is that you're asking for, if it's under historic, is indeed a historic resource. So we certainly need that kind of determination.
Understood.
If you're, yep. And if indeed this is, if it's
And,
the
and
park department.
I do have I'm scheduled to speak to that.
Okay, and certainly if you're saying that this study would be carried out with the park department or in conjunction with the park department, we clearly need to see something with the park department saying that they're at least aware of it and interested in it. And
Sure.
and we
That's
would like
makes
that
it reasonable. We've had some trouble with Charlie's health.
Yeah, and so by the 21st of May, we need the neighborhood and historic and park letters. Okay, so with that being said, I'll see whether any questions from other committee members. Ralph has a question.
So David, is it fair to say, putting aside sort of the trolley aspect of this, that this is a request for $5,000 to study the essentially the Highland Rail Trail from across its entirety from where it enters Springfield to where it leaves Springfield?
Well, it starts at my Union Station. And I
Sure.
would say, yes, that basically you're correct, to where it leaves Springfield.
And do you
now
know
I have a
Charlie's
question.
big thing is that
So let me ask you this. It's not to study the 2 components that are already being studied. It's to study how you get from the McKnight part of the trail to downtown, and to get from the McKnight part of the trail close to State Street to the Forest Park, East Forest Park parts of it. Is that
you're
correct?
You're correct, Bob, but I still think that sort of implies that there's a totality if you combine the 4 pieces.
Okay.
Well,
So in other
is there
words,
totality?
there's a piece from Armory Street west that goes to downtown. Then there's a piece that's being studied now. Then it ends at Johnson School. Then there's a piece that's not being studied. Then there's another piece that's being studied that starts at Hickory Street and goes to East Longmeadow.
Yep.
Well, they're being beyond studied. I mean, they're doing design on some of them.
Well, right.
Just to continue my thing, I just want to bring up one other point. Although we did offer money to the Indian motorcycle project, they declined, so we didn't actually wind up funding that.
I wasn't aware of that.
So, any other questions? Gloria?
David, how did you come up with the $25,000? There's no estimates in here from a company that might do it.
No, and I had a general conversation with Mr. Sullivan a couple years ago and reported that to Charlie, and we felt that that was a good preliminary figure, but we're not really sure.
All right, that definitely needs to be decided upon. And I know in the back here, you have a map that is the new Heritage Rail line. Is it possible to just get a little more detail on the map? Because I'm trying to follow you and I'm not, and I apologize for that. But what sections are not connected, like maybe in red or
We
another
can-
color? Thank you, I'm sorry.
No, it's a
Sometimes I'm brain dead.
perfectly good criticism. Our committee highlighted that last week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, and any other questions from committee members? Okey-dokey, seeing no hands, we'll go on to the last presentation, which is City of Homes Living Museum and related restoration.
Okay. I am going to take the lead on that also, Bob. It's all right.
Yep.
I'm being trained by my committee to make the committee aware, to the extent that it's not, that this is being generated by a group of us, but with my assistance and support, having not only grown up in the McKnight area in the city of Springfield, but also worked in preservation for a number of years and worked in earned both a planning degree and a historic preservation degree at the University of Mass. What we're proposing, and I think having seen the committee's, the various entries that were made, we should be modifying that, and we'll do that by the 21st. What we're proposing is a balanced approach to overall restoration plan and interpretive plan for the McKnight neighborhood as part of what we're calling a City of Homes Living Museum. This includes improvement of the former Kibbe Manor on Bowden Street for use as a welcome center. It includes interpretive signs similar to the ones that were previously funded for conservation areas. And it improves certain common areas improvements. I sent it with the application, an illustration of the dummy light that of the type that previously existed in the center point of McKnight right at the point of the Thompson Triangle at the intersection of Dartmouth Terrace, Worthiness Street, Dartmouth Street, and St. James Avenue. In addition, we're including focus on the magazine park and the restoration fund that we had previously been advocating. Now, after we submitted our application, it became obvious that a parallel application for improvement of the McKnight of the magazine playground has been submitted. We're not seeking to compete with that. So we could consider that this is a sort of seconding of that motion. We are concerned that that location, besides being recreational, is also the location of the original arsenal of the United States or of the Continental Congress, and that we think it should be designed as part of the historic neighborhood and as something that impacts on and should enrich the National Register district and the local district, not as a conventional playground with conventional equipment and conventional modern vocabulary. At the same time, we want to focus tonight, we want to bring the committee up to date on the discussions we've been having with the city council, at long last, in the wake of the law department's objection to our initial proposal for a revolving fund that the committee was good enough to recommend in 2018. We still, and we continue to feel that there's been a lack of emphasis on supporting preservation in the National Register District. We're just completing restoration of a house on Bay Street that we preserved that was going to be demolished, and we preserved it through the demo delay ordinance. The same one that somehow didn't. Go ahead. Okay.
1 minute.
So we've just, this afternoon, I just finished talking with Attorney Pakula, and we would like to move forward with the committee's support with the revised program for the revolving loan fund, which the law department is now comfortable with, where we identify particular houses, which we identified in the materials submitted to you. And we work closely with the city to primarily fund the vendors who are working on that. One of those houses is on Dartmouth Terrace and has some severe code enforcement and safety issues that we're trying to address that can't be addressed through the paint program. And the other one, one of the others, I've sent some pictures of, they've had to support the porches, and they're in basically dire need of assistance, and we can't support that with the paint program either. It needs work before it can be painted. So in
Time's
that,
up.
I would complete my, perfect. Thank you.
Sorry, David.
It's all right.
Okay. Well, thank you, David. So first, several technical things that we have to resolve. You know, if you are claiming that the traffic light is a historic resource, we need a determination from the Springfield Historical Commission that it is. If you're saying that the carriage house for the house on Westminster Street is a historic resource, we need the Historical Commission to tell us that it is a contributing part of the McKnight National Register District. Obviously,
Sure.
Any work done on parkland, we need to know the park department's at least aware of it, if not in favor of it. And we need evidence that you've at least told the McKnight Neighborhood Council that you're applying for CPA money. We don't necessarily, it's always good to have the letter of support, but that's not required. But we need those things by May 21st in order to go forward with even discussing this.
That's I think
Okay.
we can accomplish those.
Okay, and I'll start off with a question. Under secured funding sources, you've got Cooperative Development Institute, Inc. for $500,000.
Yes.
I mean, you've got a secured funding source from them?
Yes. It's actually been expended. That's what we're using right now.
So can you get us something
Mostly
that says that? I mean, you know, once again,
Sure.
secured funding in my mind means there's been a letter sent by someone from this group saying we're committed to helping you with X number of dollars.
They've given, I can get you a new letter. They've given us several.
Okay. Any other questions from committee members? Ralph?
So David, there's a lot of items here on this request. I'm wondering if there's any way for you to sort of focus it a little bit. I mean, because what I'm kind of getting is, you know, there's a lot of little things, but they're not really all very well formed. They're not really very well specified. So for example, the historic restoration loans and grants, it mentions that it's, you know, targeted towards the Bay Street property, and you mentioned a property on Dartmouth Terrace, but it doesn't really. Is that just you're asking for sort of like what you had asked for 2 years ago, the same concept, that this is just a historic grant program?
No, it's not a historic grant program. Actually, we're breaking the program in two, but essentially what we're looking for is to set a program to put a program together where funds can be used to assist with restoration of a house, possibly matching other sources. We're, for instance, we're trying to apply to the National Park Service for one of their programs, but that as properties change hands, as people's families evolve, many times in the past, the city has given people very generous grants, some of them 15, 20, and $30,000. And basically the family may have been elderly at that time, but then subsequently the generational change happened and they sold the property and essentially were enriched by virtue of community fund assets. We're looking for those funds to go back into a revolving fund that could be available through a committee. And we want to work with the Community Preservation Committee to establish how to use those funds in the future, but which could come back into be essentially useful at some point in time in the future. In addition to that, according to what Attorney Pakula said, we could not establish, and our program and the Trustees of Preservation program was like, let us have money to give a fund out to people who need it. We were told that that is not acceptable, that we have to identify exactly which houses would be receiving funds and exactly in to what degree and under what terms. And that has to be approved by the Community Preservation Committee and the City Council. And that's what we're doing at this point.
Well, that's what so in this application, there's probably 4 or 5 different things, but none of them are really spelled out in any detail. So, you know, you do mention historic restoration loan and grant program, and you allude to the properties, but there's no detail behind, you know, the work.
I can
that's
be much
needed
more
or how much
specific.
is going
I can even get as far as work write-ups.
Okay. And you know, there's the restoration of the sledding hill at the Dingle. Presumably that's property that's owned by the city of Springfield.
The proposal.
And, you know, in order to, excuse me? Is it owned by the city? The Dingle? Did I lock up?
Yeah, the
We have
Dingle is
gone quite a
parkland.
ways into that. Yeah.
Well, so I guess just the question though is that, so you're asking $50,000 for the restoration of the Dingle.
Hello?
I mean, it's more of a conceptual request rather than a detailed request. So, you know, I guess, is there any way you could just focus on 1 or 2 of these and make them very detailed rather than sort of putting out a smorgasbord of very superficial requests?
Yes, we can do that by the 21st.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions from committee members? Oh, Gloria, was that your hand up? Gloria,
Yes.
yep.
Yes. David, I
Yeah.
want to piggyback on what Ralph said. There's a lot here that really needs to be separated into individual projects. For instance, you say funds are requested to support actual costs of improvements to Welcome Center and Museum at the Kibbe House. That's very interesting. There's no pictures. I want to see pictures. I want to understand. I want to pick this up and have an idea of what you're talking about. So pictures and budgets for each individual project that you're asking here, like the Architectural Crafts Center at the Washbourne House, and the interpretive signage in the historic district. All those, okay?
I think we can do that.
Thank
I didn't
you.
want to be too voluminous.
If I might say that when we're doing these proposals, because we have so many of them, and as Bob said, you know, we have a limited amount of money and our requests are over 5 million, I think he said. It helps to be very specific. This is the Kibbe House, and we're going to do this, this, and this to it. It takes the guesswork out from us because we do not want to guess what someone is doing. That's why we're being very picky.
I'd be happy to go as far as I can.
Thank
The only
you.
thing is, as people were saying, the materials costs are kind of volatile right now.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate that.
Gloria, you had a question?
No, what?
I do,
Oh,
Bob. I
Juanita.
have a question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Juanita, yep.
This isn't a question, Dave, rather than something to be helpful. If you follow the application step by step, it will be easier then for you and for us to read it, you know? And that
Okay,
will help you out because it will put your thoughts together in a way that would be easier for us to read.
Okay, I
Okay?
hear that.
All right, you've got some good ideas
I'll
there.
try to
They
get
just
it
need to
revised.
be put together.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. So any other questions from committee members? So hearing none, we have finished the presentations. I think, hold on. I think folks got the email from Karen that said the gun block has withdrawn its application. So we have one fewer application to consider than we did before. Juanita, you have a question?
Yeah. Karen, did they say why they were withdrawing?
Yes, yes, he did. His name escapes me right now.
Donald Mitchell.
Thank you. Yes, there's another project that they feel is more in line with where they are with what they want to do. So they're just, for now, it's canceled.
Okay.
All right. So now we will go on with the other business of the committee. Folks, our visitors, our presenters are welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to depart if you want. So I don't think we had minutes sent out, so I don't think we have anything to approve.
Correct.
Is that correct, Karen?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay. And so the other item on the agenda is approving the budget for next year. This is the budget that begins on July 1 of this year. And I had sent it out again for the committee.
I'm going to just pull it up on the screen here.
Thank you. So you know that every year we have to present a preliminary budget to City Council. That budget has to include what we think is our revenue from the tax levy, what we think will be the share that's coming from the Commonwealth. We have to set 10% of that, at least 10% aside for historic resources, 10% for community housing, 10% for open space and recreation. We can spend up to 5% on administration. And so, as Karen puts it up, it's what I had presented at the last meeting, but we just didn't have to take any action on it. So what you can see there is it's about $1.6 million plus that we're expecting to get from the local surcharge based on the revenue that had come in this year. Ignore the thing that says that FY21 revenue really should go on the line above it that says based on estimated FY21 revenue. And we're expecting $540,000 more or less. The DOR has advised all of its CPA communities that we can expect a 32.3% contribution coming from the state based on what we have earned, what we've raised in the previous year. And we've not included this in the past in the budget, but you know, we are entitled to the interest on our money that's invested by the city, and that's been running around $13,000. So the estimated CPA revenue for the coming fiscal year is $2,226,000. And we're putting 10% aside for the various required reserves. And there's the administrative breakdown that also leaves $14,000 for unanticipated administrative event expenses, and leaves us $1,004,980,908. That's unallocated. That can be used either for community housing, historic resources, or open space and recreation. So, any questions? If not, we'll have a motion to adopt. Ralph?
I have a question. So just to be clear, that this represents the budget for the revenue that we will be receiving for fiscal year 2022. This does not reflect sort of our balance, because I know that last year we did not grant as much money as we had available to us. So we have sort of another set of books, so to speak, that tells us how much money we have available to give out, right?
Yes, so we have also an approved fiscal 21 budget that we normally go back to City Council once the fiscal year ends. So probably in July, we will be going back to City Council to have them put more money into the three major pots, because we will have raised more money than we thought. You know, for the fiscal year that we're in, the state told all of its communities to be extremely conservative on what the state match would be. And they gave us a figure of like 11.5%. Well, come to find out, the real estate market was not affected by COVID, and the fees that get paid with all the registry of deeds, the CPA state trust fund did really well, and we ended up getting almost 3 times as much money as the state told us to expect. And that means that our budget has been underestimated, and we have to go back and adjust the amount of 10% that we put into our 3 pots. Additionally, we have the money that we did not recommend from the last fiscal year. So you're right, Ralph. But this one does not include that. This
Right.
is only the
This is just
expected
22.
money to come in. Correct.
Right. Gotcha.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, this seems
Anyone?
good.
Yeah, Juanita?
Yeah, so what is the total that we have for our applications this year? What's the total?
Well, you know, we won't know the for sure amount until the year closes. But we have, I'm going to say we have a little over $2 million that's being raised in the fiscal year that we're in. And I think we have $500,000 that we did not give out last year. As we get closer to actually voting and having to worry about not recommending money that we don't have, Karen and I will get an actual breakdown from the comptroller's office as to what we have.
Okay.
But I would say that we probably have around $2.5 million that we can recommend if we choose. You know, last year we ran out of projects that we wanted to recommend, unlike 2 years ago where we ran out of money that we could recommend.
Okay.
So if we could have a motion to adopt that budget, and then we'll send it on to City Council.
So moved.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay. So all in favor, and this will be a roll call vote. So Gloria,
Yes.
Harry Rodriguez,
Yes.
Juanita,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
David Finn,
He may be on the phone. Oh, looks like he popped in.
Aaron, yes.
all right, Willie Thomas,
Yes.
Lamar,
Yes.
and Bob McCarroll is yes. So the other item, and I don't have the agenda in front of me, so this may be slightly out of order. I think we discussed the fact that, you know, when we do historic projects, we need to make sure that the work conforms to the Secretary of the Interior standards. And we have been using the services of the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission Preservation Planner, Shannon Walsh, because there is no one in city government who knows anything about the Secretary of the Interior standards. She can give us up to 15 hours of free service a year under their local technical assistance program. We have used that up, and we still have more reviews to finish on this year's, the past year's CPA projects. And so we need to now actually contract with Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. They charge for her services $75 an hour, and she estimates it's probably another 10 hours. So I guess I'm looking for a motion that we can contract with them for her review with a ceiling of 1,000, just to give us the leeway if we need it.
So moved.
All right. Second,
I'll second it.
any discussion? All right. So if we can go back to the full screen so I can see everyone, we'll do the roll call vote. Gloria,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Nita,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Willie,
Yes.
Lamar,
Yes.
and Bob is yes. Okay. So maybe just a brief update as to how the subcommittee is doing with the historic house plaques.
I thought we said,
We're not much farther than we were last time.
I thought we settled it. At the last meeting. We
Yeah.
said white. And
Yeah,
the
I
white
was
and
under
the,
the impression we settled it, no?
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So I guess the next step is that Karen has the list of houses that are being assisted with the program by the planning department. And she has consulted the MACRA survey forms, so we know the historic names for those houses. And once they are under contract with the planning department, we will then order the plaques. Okay. Very good. All right. Karen, can you see what the next item on the agenda is?
I can. Project updates.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot, but there are just a couple things I wanted to bring to your attention. Well, regarding the plaques, we still need to decide how long is the resident supposed to keep these up. And there's just a couple things, but it's pretty much all set. So Alvin forwarded the property addresses, and they were selected by lottery to receive funds through the program. He emphasized that although the homeowners were notified that they have been selected for the program, they have not come into an agreement with any of these property owners as of yet. They are still in the process of vetting the contractors and the proposed work to come up with final grant amounts to be distributed to each household before homeowners are asked to sign a promissory note and grant agreement. So it's going to be a little while before that gets going. And I think we went through all the preservation updates, except last night, the gun block. Chris Russell attended the city council meeting last night, and the second and third steps were approved. So I think that brings us all up to date on the preservation requests from that we needed to have in place. And that's all I have.
Okay, very good. So we are going to be getting additional information from all of the applicants no later than May 21st. Karen will be emailing it to everyone so you can look at that additional information. We meet on June 1st to start the deliberations. And as we've done every year, what I want to suggest is everyone, look through the applications, look at the priorities that we've outlined in the community preservation plan, look at our criteria, and come in with just your top 8 projects. They don't have to be in order. They don't have to deal with dollar amount. It's just that we will put them up on a spreadsheet just to see what folks are thinking, and then we will start discussing them. And that will be our task for the June meeting. Then if we meet in July, we will start honing it. Ralph?
One question, could you or Karen possibly contact Stuart from the coalition to inquire about the YWCA shelter playground, given that the playground will be prohibited by being used by members of the public that are actually in the shelter?
Well, maybe I didn't, I thought I reported on this the last time around. Probably not. So I did have a conversation with Stuart, and he said, recreation on privately owned land is very difficult because, one, you don't want to find out that it's here 1 year and 10 years later it's a parking lot. But he also shared the concern that even though it's a very good cause, they're doing good work, the recreation is not, there's no direct public benefit.
Okay.
Also, Bob, if the information you requested tonight is not received by the next meeting, are those folks automatically disqualified from funding?
Well, I don't think, that's a decision that we'll make. So my feeling is that, what you get by May 21st may help decide what your top 8 projects are. But I tend to be somewhat more flexible, so that if information shows up late, well, if the committee wants to receive it, we receive it. I don't like the idea of just disqualifying people because they failed to meet a technical requirement. But certainly, if there's information, Lamar, that you wanted that you didn't get, and therefore a project has not bubbled up into your top 8 because of it, well, then it doesn't make your top 8. Juanita?
Yeah, what about, there's a couple in here that I would put as my top 8, but not the full project. So there may be projects with a lot of pieces, and we could fund one. Can I put that into the top 8, even though it's not fully funded?
Here's my thought. If you remember, what we've been doing is we create a spreadsheet so that all projects are there, and then after they come in, I'm assuming that what has happened in the past 3 years will happen again this year, which is there are a few projects that lots of committee members like, and there are sadly some projects that no committee members have on their top 8, and there's a whole bunch in the middle that one person likes or 2 people like. But we talk about all of them. We discuss all of them. And that's when you can say, I like this project, but I'm only really interested in funding this component of the project. And once again, we're not voting next meeting. We're just talking and sharing our thoughts and ideas. And then at some point, we will start voting. Last year we gave everyone, after hearing what people had to say when they came to the next meeting, they got to change some of their top 8 if what they heard changed their mind. So I think we'll do that, and then we will once again start actual voting from the projects that had the most people interested and we will talk about dollar amounts then. So it's certainly possible that people are in agreement that, well, we do want to recommend this project, but we only want to recommend a component of it. So yes. So how you determine your top 8 projects should be simply, you know, how do they ring a bell with you, with the criteria and the priorities that we've set up, and it's to get the discussion rolling. Okie dokie. So unless there's something else that someone wants to bring up, I'll have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? I think Terry's hand went up for seconding. So we'll just do everyone can wave and Willie and Lamar can chime in. I'm not going to take a formal count. So, all right. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And we had a long meeting. And I'll see you then on June 1. And hopefully you'll be getting a packet that you'll be able to review over the weekend of the 22nd, 23rd, and mull on it for the last weekend in May, so that you're all set to go on June 1st.
Have
Very
a good
good
night, everybody.
Yeah. See you, everyone. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.